was almost a disastrous start to the year of our Lord 2026 for the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. ESPN just barely avoided becoming the next episode of the woke turning on the woke. Because if the SportsCenter segment with Scott Van Pelt went where it was about to go, 2026 would be starting with boycotts of ESPN. The wanker spankers, the lonely men who haven't touched a woman who's capable of breathing without the assistance of an air compressor. They would be standing outside of the studio in Bristol, Connecticut. They would be waving their rainbow flags. They would be protesting this injustice, this outright homophobia that almost slipped through on New Year's Eve. You know, this morning I looked up the definition of homophobia because there seems to be some confusion as to what it actually means. According to the woke dictionary, homophobia is a label that we use to discredit anyone that we don't like or disagree with. For example, if you voted for Orange Man Bad, according to deacons at Woke United Methodist, that automatically makes you homophobic, Islamophobic, along with racist, misogynist, white supremacist, Nazi, Gestapo, or any other overused word that no longer has any impact whatsoever. Now, according to the Oxford Dictionary, homophobia is defined as the dislike or prejudice against the G's in LGBT. Unfortunately, the Oxford Dictionary doesn't seem to be all that inclusive. They didn't include the L's, the B's, and the T's, and they damn sure didn't include the @ sign or ++. You know, Wednesday afternoon, New Year's Eve, I took the family, the wife and daughter, to the movies. The kid wanted to see the remake of Anaconda. Me and the wife watched The Housemaid. We had both read the book by Frida McFadden, so we went and saw the movie, and as expected, the movie wasn't nearly as good as the book. It was the first time that Uncle KC had been to a movie theater since 2007. Within 5 minutes, I was instantly reminded as to why I don't see movies in the theater. There were rows and rows of empty seats, and every teenager and cackling yenta wanted to sit by us. And they wanted to talk and find every way possible to annoy Uncle Casey throughout the movie. This one lady, she walked in halfway through the movie. She saw some other talking tyrant that she knew and said, "Oh, hey, Beulah, what are you doing here?" She's damn sure not shopping for muzzles. If she was, she would put it on your mouth to keep it closed. But anyway, Sydney Sweeney was the star of the film, and some dude I had never heard of was the co-star. They end up doing the fornicating. The camera catches some brief boobage from Sydney Sweeney, but then they show what felt like a never-ending shot of the dude's bare boodle. It was probably only 2 or 3 seconds, but it seemed like it lasted forever. As soon as Brad and his bare ass was on the screen, my eyes immediately moved to the floor. I started studying the bottom of my shoe, started counting the decorative spots on the wall. I was looking for something, anything to look at besides bare ass Chad and his thundercock. Why are you admitting this publicly? This is homophobia! It can't be homophobia because Brad is attracted to women. I have nothing against Chad. I don't hate him, but I'm also not comfortable seeing him without layers of clothes covering his hairy back. I think most dudes feel the same way. I know for damn sure Scott Van Pelt does. Judging by his reaction on New Year's Eve, Scott Van Pelt doesn't want to see 2 dudes combining their mustache. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. So I get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends at Sugar Mountain Trading. My uncle called me last month. He's a military veteran, served in the Gulf War in the early 90s. As he has gotten older, he's been dealing with various health-related issues. Doctors had him on pain management. They had him taking all this medication just to sleep at night, most of which wasn't working. Once the meds wore off, he was tossing and turning all night, keeping my aunt up. Plus, he was building up a tolerance. Last month, my aunt bought him some CBD lotion from Sugar Mountain Trading. She just wanted him to try it out to see if it worked. He applies the CBD lotion every night before bed. My uncle is getting the best sleep that he's gotten in years. He doesn't even take the pain medication anymore because he doesn't need it. Recently, I also gave some of the CBD lotion to my dad. Now, Dad's been installing and repairing sprinkler systems my entire life, so he's developed pain in his knees. Hates taking pills, so I gave him some of the CBD lotion from Sugar Mountain to try out. His knees are now pain-free, even at 74 years old. All CBD products offered at Sugar Mountain Trading, 100% natural, 100% free of THC. So click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Use my promo code BTL25, BTL25. Receive 25% off your first purchase with Sugar Mountain Trading. Wednesday night, while Uncle KC was trying to sleep as the neighborhood assholes were shooting fireworks until well past midnight, Scott Van Pelt was hosting SportsCenter. Unsurprisingly, ESPN wasn't showing actual sports during SportsCenter. I mean, why would they do that? Why would a network that's supposedly dedicated to sports show sports highlights on a show called SportsCenter? Instead, ESPN decided to surprise Scott Van Pelt with live footage from Times Square, which is the absolute last place any rational man would want to be on New Year's Eve. Hey friends, I've got an idea that's great! Let's surround ourselves with thousands of strangers who probably haven't been introduced to a bath, and let's stare into the sky and watch a gigantic ball drop on our face. ESPN decides to interrupt SportsCenter to surprise Scott Van Pelt with live footage from Times Square. The ball is dropping. The confetti is flying. Lonely men are frantically searching for a woman that's actually willing to make face-to-face contact with them. Finally, ESPN finds a lonely man who found a woman desperate enough to give him a nice kiss. Me personally, I'm not into public displays of smooching, but when you're young, you want footage of yourself kissing a woman so you can brag to your friends that you have finally been deflowered. Scott Van Pelt, he is reacting to the live makeout session when all of a sudden, the footage takes a surprising turn. Instead of one 5 o'clock shadow on the screen, there were two. Watch for yourself.
Yeah, live makeouts on SportsCenter. Get into it. Oh, what do we got? We got love in the air and makeouts. Tony and Mike on kazoos. Who's having a good time? Happy New Year, everybody!
First of all, Scott Van Pelt is a true professional. He damn near barfed up his dinner. He damn near puked up the spiced wiener that ESPN was serving and catering. But Scott Van Pelt, on the spot, on live television, he quickly rescued himself. He instantly saved himself from immense backlash from the wanker spankers. But even with that being the case, Scott Van Pelt was still somewhat criticized by lonely men for his reaction on social media. I don't understand. Why doesn't Scotty want to see Chad kissing Brad? It was so romantic. These two men are clearly in love. This has absolutely nothing to do with Chad and Brad. This has nothing to do with their display of pride or their decision to enter 2026 tasting the rainbow. Most dudes just aren't into seeing other dudes. Whether it's man and woman or man and man, doesn't matter. Why do you think most movies with romantic scenes, why do you think they focus specifically on the woman? Why do you think the entire industry of pornography, which is incredibly dangerous, but why do you think the entire industry is targeting men, mainly young men? They know most dudes don't want to see another dude's Johnson. They don't want to count the hairs on his boodle. Girl and girl? That's every college-aged male's dream. Dude and dude? No thanks. If I had to guess, Scott Van Pelt's reaction was similar to the reaction of most men in America, which is one of the many reasons that Scott Van Pelt is a star at ESPN. It's one of the reasons that Scott Van Pelt has longevity. We watch people we can relate to. My wife likes to watch The Real Housewives. Doesn't matter if it's The Real Housewives of Orange County or The Real Housewives of Paducah, Kentucky. My wife watches every episode of every season. Why? Because she relates to the dramatic women on the show. She likes to see what they're wearing. She likes to watch them argue over a pair of earrings. Scott Van Pelt is one of the biggest stars at ESPN because the average American male can relate to him. It's also the reason that Crying Ryan Clark is the most despised doofus at the network. How can a man relate to Crying Ryan? Men don't cry about fake racism. Men don't cry about their Uber driver playing 50 Cent. If a man gets in an Uber and doesn't like the song selection, he puts on a set of headphones or he tells the driver to turn the damn radio off. The one thing he doesn't do is go on Twitter begging for sympathy from other lonely dudes and cry about being musically profiled. Seriously, though, credit to Scott Van Pelt. I don't know if his producers were trying to trick him or if they wanted to see his reaction. Either way, Scott Van Pelt, he handled this situation like a pro. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.